Yes. All right. Now it's recording.
Excellent.
Okay. So I am going to mute and stop video and peace out because I'm like doing a million things.
Yep.
But
All right.
if you need me, if something technical happens, just call me on my phone. All right.
Will do.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Hi, folks. I'm just admitting our presenters first. Where'd Pat go? Sorry for the delay. Some technical difficulties on the startup. Hey, could Renee and Hillary, can you just test your audio just to make sure everything's coming through all right?
Hi.
Yep, got them both at once. All right, there's Pat.
Hello.
Hi.
Sounds like my audio's coming through then.
Yep,
Cool.
my camera is not working for some reason. Actually, hold on. Just shut that off. Okay, there we go. Much better. So Jason's actually recording this via Zoom, so I think it'll actually be a better quality than what I had set up on his end. Adjust my microphone a little bit.
So Hillary, you're up first. Planning to start at 7:10, but if we have a couple minutes after 7 where people aren't trickling in anymore, then we can start earlier so you can get to your other thing.
Cool.
And then we'll just play it by ear. Other than that, whoever's ready to go and feels like going can present after as we go on.
Matt's presenting, right? Matt Butler.
Matt and or Keith for Blackwoods Gods, yeah.
Okay. We got Matt in here. I don't know if you can hear us. Steve Leica, but your audio doesn't look like it's connected yet.
He probably just hasn't clicked the use computer audio dialogue yet.
We hear Matt.
Hey Pat, how you doing?
Perfect.
Hi, Matt.
I've had to switch to my phone because I could not get the computer to work where we are. So
Oh, that's too bad.
yeah, but at least I had my phone and I'm able to at least get some signal.
Good. Okay, well, that's something. Your
Somewhere-
audio's coming through fine.
Awesome.
You somewhere fun, Matt?
Up at the studio up in New Hampshire.
Okay. Still pretty cool. Not quite as exotic though.
Yeah, nowhere really cool.
Not like the 3-story Taco Bell in Minnesota.
No, I'm currently surrounded by motorcycles and props from the past 20 years of eventing.
All right, I think I'm going to start bringing in the participants. Any questions from any of the presenters before we bring folks in?
Nope. I don't think mine will take nearly as long as we had originally thought, but no.
Yeah,
All
totally.
good.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Adrian was going to come in and do a bit for me
yeah,
musically. I think he might want to do a sound check if that's okay.
yeah. Is he under Adrian monitor?
I don't know what he's under.
Oh, do you know if he's waiting to get in right now?
He should be.
It's got the only one Adrian in the queue.
Oh,
so-
okay, good. Thank you.
Adrian monitor. Look at that.
Assuming this is the correct Adrian, do you want to do a sound check just to make sure your mic's all set up?
Yeah, I think I caught the last part of that, but was that Adrian? Do you want to do a sound check to make sure your mic's set up?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I was doing a little bit of a mic check in the Zoom settings. I'm not a super techie, so we'll see how this goes. If it sucks, I'll just play the guitar unplugged and we'll call it a day.
You're coming through
but,
loud and clear.
I believe in you.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Someone's
Start
got it,
screaming.
right?
Gonna play some death metal and start screaming.
Seems pretty Van Dorian to me.
I connected with two oh, there we go. Now it's coming in. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna test out. It would help if I unmuted it on the Zoom call. There we go. All right, I'm gonna do a little test. Already tell that's silly. All right, so now the test is just to see if vocals and guitar pick up well enough on.
I'm not getting any audio from you, Adrian.
Yeah, you should only be getting audio from the monitor one. Do I have monitor on the wrong? Hold on, let me fix these.
This is
labels
the
so they make
monitor
more
one.
sense. Yeah, this Robert Stargile should be the monitor one.
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
fix it.
It's currently muted.
Yeah. So that the Robert Stargoyle, which I'll put a more appropriate name in because that's just one of my D&D characters.
Okay.
I was all excited. I was like, who is that with the cool name?
Yeah, some random
Stargoyle,
person I'd
it's-
never heard
oh,
of
it's
before.
hilarious. Yeah, he's an Aokorka professional wrestler named Stargoyle. It's hysterical.
Current stage name.
Yeah. Show up to the realms of Stargoyle, just full blown. Yeah, that costume would definitely slap in realms. Let me see. How do I change names and stuff? You'd think I'd know by now.
I can rename it for you. What do you want it to say?
Just do Adrian performance, and then that way I'll just throw my microphone up on this one and have this one all set up and ready to go. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna do that test one more time and see how it goes.
Sounds good.
How's the guitar coming through?
Okay, a little tinny sounding.
Yeah, I honestly think I'm gonna not bother.
Plugging it in and just going this way because
Yeah, I think it was
it's a
coming
hollow
through
body.
all
so-
right before when you were playing just on your monitor account.
All right, let me see.
Yeah, we'll be all right. Did it sound better when it was just coming through the headset?
A little bit, yeah. It's not picked up as consistently.
Yeah.
But the tonal quality is better, I think.
All right, we'll go with total quality. I like that. I'm
Testing,
sold.
testing. I've been having some mic issues lately.
Hi Tim, you sound good.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Makes it easier. I only have to run one Zoom.
Probably just keep that one and keep it as a monitor for myself. Is that coming through at all with the amp, Pat? I know I'm taking up a little bit of time here, but
That's all right. We got 4 minutes. It's a little quiet. It might have something to do with Zoom's automatic audio filtering since it's
that's a
trying
good
to
point.
get people voice and not music.
I mean, if anything, it's more the guitar is more to keep me in check anyway, so we'll just go with it. It'll be
Okay.
fine. I've made do with worse.
I don't know, Adrian. I'm pretty amped about your song.
Oh God. Now I know that the anxiety is real because we're punning.
All right. Does anyone else feel a need for a mic check before we start getting underway? I see Rosetta's lit up, but not creating audio.
I think that
Oh, no.
that's the chewing sound.
There you are. Oh, you're the chewing sound. Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I hate Zoom.
I think we'll probably do some minor editing for the video before it's put up on YouTube. So we'll probably trim to like do a little card for, I don't know, like Dionin, and then we'll do the presentation. So we don't need to worry about the technical shenanigans at the beginning. There's a decent chance we'll take a little break, like between some of the presentations too, depending on how long things go. All right, so in about 3 minutes, we're going to have Tara start off with presenting for the deities of Fae. And then we'll kind of play it by ear after that, depending on who feels like they're ready to go and want to get it underway.
I volunteer to go second, Pat.
Cool. So in that case, you'll be on deck after Tara. Yes, we're starting with Fae. Yeah, feel free to use the chat, folks, if you have questions or things. If people presenting for their deity or pantheon have extra time in their slot, then we'll let folks do specific to that presentation follow-up questions in the remaining time, assuming the person is open to receiving those questions. But if not, we'll just keep rolling. And I'd say put your questions in chat probably. That way we don't have to worry about a bunch of back and forth, unmuting, muting. But if for some reason you feel a need to vocalize your question during one of those points, feel free, I suppose. Just make sure we call on you first. All right. Tucker, anything to add?
No, I think you covered all the basics, and just generally welcomed everyone to our first Realms Community Forum. We're pretty excited about this. We are recording, so this will also be available. Hopefully, everything works out after to review as well. So for folks who can't make it and are watching this in the future.
Yep. So I think with that, if you're good, Sir Tara, you can have the floor.
Sure. I will be presenting on behalf of the Fae, and it is actually a fairly interesting choice to have us go first. I know time restraints and all that, but things in the Fae pantheon are actually quite a bit different from mortal. I was going through the list of things that most people will be discussing, domains and the like. And so the Fae pantheon is made up of their majesties, King Cuchulainn and Queen Nimbus, as well as the dukes and duchesses, each of whom have their own domains. Primarily, Cuchulainn and Nimbus are the ones who are seen as deities, and the rest are sort of adjunct powers that we can also call to for their more specific things. So for example, if I needed to invoke the domain of trickery, I would want to contact Zerzula. Where things get interesting is I am aware that most gods that mortals worship have avatars and champions. We do not do that. When our gods take to the field, they just take to the field, which is quite a bit different from how most people interact with their gods, I am told. As far as calling on them goes, we tend to make our temples or shrines outside, temporary, not necessarily permanent. I am unaware of any permanent temples to the Fae. And the symbols that we use are those associated with the True Court, although a lot of people also still use the older color associations with the Seelie and the Unseelie, and sort of categorize ourselves along those lines and call to the dukes and duchesses along those lines as well. I think that covers everything, but if anybody has any questions, I know that was sort of fast.
Would you like
What do you mean, the Fae are secretive? That's crazy.
Would you like questions voiced or in the chat?
Either is fine with me.
Can you tell us about some of the leaders? We got to see one of them on the field. They joined us for battle against Rexan. Would you be able to tell us a bit about the nobles?
Oh, certainly. So that was King Cuchulainn. He is the Duke of Honor without compromise, as well as the King of the Fae. So I suppose saying he is the Duke of Honor, that would be his domain. Specifically is honor. His counterpart would be Queen Nimbus. While not physically present, she did respond when we called to her for that battle as well. She is the Duchess of Healing within Sacrifice. All of the dukes and duchesses have a secondary part of their title, which is either without or within, and that defines their power. So when you call on Cuchulainn in matters of honor, that honor cannot be compromised upon. If you call to Nimbus for healing, it is within Sacrifice. There are always costs to her healing. Most of the other dukes and duchesses haven't been seen in a while. Although I do know quite a few people would know the current Duke of Trickery, His Grace Sir Zula, the Duke of Trickery without limitations.
Could you tell us a little bit about I know this could get long, so like a short version, about the ascension of the king and queen, or the establishment of their current reign?
I can try. It was actually before my time. My first event was their coronation. But so prior to their majesties taking the throne in their current state, Oberon and Titania ruled the Fae. They were the false king and queen. But even before that, Cuchulainn and Mab ruled within Fae. And they were overthrown by, among others, Oberon and Titania, in an event known as the Purging, which is, that would be a long story and fairly complicated. But eventually relics began to come forward, including a shield, a sword, items that had belonged to Cuchulainn, and they ended up making their way into the hands of Owen McCry of Clan McCry of Shimmeron, and he is the one who ascended and became Cuchulainn through the course of a war that was fought against Oberon and Titania to reclaim Fae. Looks like Adrian has a question.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had kind of a simple one. Do you have any blanket general advice for a new adventurer traveling within the lands of Shimmeron that might have to deal with a Fae that hasn't necessarily dealt with one before?
Typically speaking, a lot of the same advice I would give to anyone: be polite. And watch your wording, perhaps more than with most.
Okay, noted. Thank you. I'll pass that along.
Looks like James Swift had a question in chat as well.
Particularly strong memory from the coronation. It was a very long time ago at this point. But I do have a very distinct memory of seeing the moment right after the actual coronation itself, when their majesties were standing at the front of the hall and the banner of the true court was hanging behind them with the light, and they had the new crowns and everything, and it was an extremely striking image. If there are any other questions, I can. Otherwise, I think the other thing I would say as far as them as gods and how we interact, it tends to be very fluid. The actual worship of them as gods becoming as widespread as it has been fairly new. And as far as how, you know, the rituals are done and everything, it's very personal, but done with intent and a lot of music, actually. We tend to sing to call to them. No one planned this, it just keeps happening that way.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Sertara, for giving us a little bit of intro to the Fae as deities of the realms. All right. So I think we'll move on to Sir Matthias next for the Blackwood gods.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to do mine a little more formally, as opposed to the way the Fae are done. The Pantheon in Blackwood currently consists of 5 gods. So I'm going to go through them, say a little bit about them, most recent champions and avatars, and maybe just a small bit of history. Probably won't take too long. So I'll give it a start. Right now, like I said, there are currently 5 gods. The first one being Mardawath. His domain is magic. Current champion / last known mortal avatar was James Swift. Due to unfortunate circumstances and the need that arose, he did step up and was infused with the essence of Mardawath and to gain quite a bit of abilities. Mardawath, although the god of magic for eons, has been in love and chasing and is now betrothed to Adana, who is one of our other gods. The gods of Blackwood bestow a gift upon those of the royal family. In the case of Mardawath, he has bestowed one gift, and that gift was a set of armor to who is now Queen Jinx that connects her to the land. Next one I'm going to talk about is Adana. Adana is healing and nature. She is also the patron goddess of the Knights of Blackwood. It is also her that empowers the ability of the Knights of Blackwood. She in the past has been the provider of the spirit animals of the royal family, going all the way back to Prince Nigel, who had received a unicorn as his spirit animal. And then after that was Sir Eric, who received a dragon, whom some of you were at the event a few years ago, where we ended up having to fight Sir Eric and his Dracolich. And then most recently, when King K became King Carol, he was granted his spirit animal of the tortoise, which I know some people know the name as Tut Tut, but that is actually his spirit animal. If you want to know how that name came about, next time you see King K at an event, you can ask. Yes, and I'm using notes because I'm holding to get things. The same night that we fought and destroyed the Lich at the death knight to Eric and his Dracolich, Vazre, who was a former member of Blackwood, ascended. At the time, there were domains that were left unclaimed within the Blackwood Pantheon. At that time, Vazre was given the choice to ascend, thus in essence, three ticking his character to ascend to become part of the Pantheon. His domain is Redemption, and last I heard that his champion was Cronin, the Barbarian. And it's funny that you're on here, Cronin, because nobody could actually confirm that. But everyone in Blackwood said you were the champion, the last champion of the God of Redemption.
That's pretty epic. It's news to me.
Perfect.
I do remember
Congratulations.
actually. No, I remember the moment. That's pretty sweet that happened. That's awesome.
Yes.
I didn't know that was the result, but I recall the event.
It was
That's
the
pretty
result.
sweet.
I mean, tag, you're it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And the last two I will touch on as like Vazre. The next one happened to ascend the same night as Vazre. As some of you who were there, I was also given the chance to ascend next to Vazre and take up one of the domains that was available. At the time, Matthias was the mortal avatar, of which most mortals call him Change. I had been for going on 7 years. And when I refused to ascend, the daemon that was within me chose to ascend and become the god Change. At that time, he was the god of corruption. That was his domain. And currently, his champions are Damien Redblade and Nadala, both of Grimlock. Due to them being soul bonded at the time during a ritual, Damien became the champion, and through the soul binding that they shared, became dual champions. They still both currently are. Nadala has the belt of Change, and Damien wields Change's blade. Currently, it is unknown by the PCs what his new domain is, as at the end of one of the events, the same event that James Swift was possessed and was the mortal avatar of Maduath. The PCs did a very long and arduous ritual and ceremony, severing all ties of Change to the domain of corruption and removing that domain from him. So currently at this time, his domain is unknown by mortals. And the last god that I'm going to talk about is the most recent one, is the three-faced god. And he is currently, his domains are corruption and the Lord of Assassins. So a little story on that is a trio of daemons who were set free from the prison plane and the prison by the heroes of the realms. Once they were set free, the heroes were warned by a pair of celestial keepers of what they truly were. The heroes responded with, we can deal with it later, and insisted on helping the three daemons escape through the portal and into the mortal realms. Upon entering the mortal realms, the three daemons then ascended to become what is now called the three-faced god. He is the newest well, he, she, as is made up of 2 male and 1 female daemon. And they are currently, when they ascended, they stole the domain of corruption from change after it was severed by the PCs, and then also picked up the domain of the assassin. And their third domain has not yet been revealed to the PCs. And at this time, there is no mortal avatar, as they have not chosen one, and the champion is yet unnamed. There is one, but the PCs have yet to discover who that is. And that is the current pantheon of Blackwood. Does anyone have any questions?
Do I have any responsibilities? No, I'm just kidding.
We'll catch you soon.
Terrified.
Come to one of our 2
Absolutely
events this
terrified.
year. It'll be fun.
I'm trying to come out of retirement. I'm trying.
It looks like Rosetta has a question, his hand's raised, and then Erin, did I say that right? Is asking for a little more review on the ones after a DNA. So
Okay,
I guess we'll start with
Rosetta?
that. Yeah, we'll start with Rosetta.
Okay.
Sure. Thanks. Good presentation. I remember years ago, like a decade ago, Mardoweth Dagger was around and was something of a big deal and was maybe cursed. That might be too like in the weeds, but does that ring a bell to you? Is there anything interesting to say about that?
I believe that the dagger itself was fixed. The curse that was in it was removed. And I believe that
Okay.
from then on it was just a dagger that had additional spell abilities in it. But I believe that some of the PCs did do a ritual to cleanse the dagger itself.
Was
I'm
the
not currently
dagger
sure who
like
holds it. I know it is in play.
like is the dagger a holy artifact of Mardoweth? Is it you know, a like at the time I sort of thought Mardoweth himself was like an evil spirit, not a god. So this is fascinating.
So so each of the gods actually did have a dagger of their own, and each of the daggers did grant spell abilities. Some were not, for like Mardoweth did have that curse / corruption when it first came out. The
Okay.
spirit that inhabited the dagger was corrupted, again later cleansed. But each of the daggers that went out, there were 5. I believe Casey still wields a dagger of change. Each of the daggers did have, at the time, the 3rd level spell within that god's domain. It was their regional spell. So each dagger held some of the essence of the god in the form of a 3rd level regional magic that fell within the path and domain of that god.
Fascinating. This fills in a lot. Really appreciated it.
Okay, who is next?
So
Trying to
Erin,
scroll back.
yeah, asked you to review a little bit the basics of the gods after a DNA. Just because the
Should I talk
details went
really
by a little
fast?
fast. I guess so, yeah.
Yes, I do talk really fast. Part of my curse. So after Adani was Vajre. Again, Vajre did ascend after actually having a character for many years. So he now plays an alt within Folkestone. But he did choose to ascend and became the god of redemption. After Vajre was the god Change, whom I was the mortal avatar of Change for about 7 years. Before he ascended when I chose not to, because I had still too many things to do. I blamed it on my tire and was severely punished for that move. And after change was the three-faced god, which is the most recent god and least known in regard to their, I guess, heavenly abilities, or however you want to, celestial abilities, godlike abilities, due to the fact that they only appeared about a year before COVID hit. So they have not been around very long. But the two domains are known, as that was discovered by the PCs when the gods ascended.
I think Rubus has his hand up next.
Okay, cool, because I can't see chat anymore. I hit something button.
Yeah, it's all good.
That's good. This is actually, I mean, this is pseudo in character, right? Or is that out of character? I can't remember.
Yeah.
This is
In
in
character.
character.
Okay. I'm Loken, not Rubus.
Yep.
Oh, your
Rubus
name
doesn't give a
actually
fuck.
says
Yeah,
Rubus.
It came up as Rubus.
I asked Tucker to change my name for me. Rubus doesn't give a fuck about the gods. So as Loken, within the lands of Blackwood, do other pantheons and other like gods hold any power, or do the gods of Blackwood answer in their stead? I know that in many different areas across the realms, we find that different gods have different reaches as far as jurisdiction goes. And so some gods reach everywhere, and some gods only reach within their own plane. And so I'm curious how that works in Blackwood.
Well, since the planet Shieldstone was destroyed, other gods' influences can now reach into Blackwood. The champion of Blackwood, being Sir Tao, does worship and call on Tyke, as most of you know. When someone sneezes, he says, "A day bless you," or "Tyke bless you," and anytime he plays cards, that's who he calls upon. So there are several other gods that do influence, and powers can be felt within Blackwood now that the PCs destroyed the planet Shieldstone, which at the time was blocking out all gods, including the gods within Blackwood.
I think several people would like you to spell Adana for us.
Oh, wouldn't you like that? No.
Yes.
I will gladly find you the spelling, but I myself have spelled it 3 different ways today.
A day and a.
I will tell you. It's let's see, EDAONAE.
Yep.
Okay.
Jana was close.
I know some people.
I just said that.
Yeah,
That's
you
so
were kind
funny.
of close.
You were close.
I started scrolling down the bottom. I'm like, man, no, this is actually the correct way. It took a little while because for years I've always spelled it wrong. The only one time I spelled it correctly is when the magic item that was backed by Liz, the Wand of Adani, went out, and we made sure we had to spell it right for that. Now, if you go into the magic item list and see the Wand of Adani, it should be spelled like how I just gave it to you, but I could be wrong.
No, what about
I'm a math and
magic dagger?
I'm a math and science guy, not an English guy.
You know, there's all sorts of villagers and tribes and different factions within Blackwood spell things for different reasons, you know. Subtleties of grammar and inflections.
So are there any other questions?
Loken, it looks like you're trying to confirm the domains of the deities. Is that correct? Okay.
Okay.
So,
sure.
Just in order. Yeah.
Okay. Mardowath is magic. Adana is healing and nature. Vajra is redemption. Change, his domains are currently unknown by the PCs. and those will be found at a later time this year at our event. And the three-faced god, currently 2 of the 3 domains are known, and that is corruption and the Lord of Assassins. Correct. Mardoath is magic. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah,
Vasdre is VASDRE.
That was close.
Yep.
all right. Any other questions regarding the Blackwood Pantheon? Okay, well, thank you very much, Sir Matthias.
You're welcome. All right, everyone have a good night as I must depart. Thank you very much for hosting this. I appreciate it. It's great.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
All right, take care, everyone.
All right, who would like to go next? We have a handful of our presenters here. Nobody's obligated to go next, but we do need someone to go next.
I'll go if no one else wants to.
That would be great. Thank you, Kendriana.
You're welcome. I'm glad this crazy dwarven contraption is working. So I'm here to talk about the Pantheon of Varanus. And the Varanus Pantheon consists of 4 deities: Gaia, Luna, Siltana, and Vandor. And while I have respect and reverence for each of these gods, I am not the best to speak for each one. So I'll do what I can to introduce them and honor them appropriately, but know that the world is vast and spiritual practices are as varied and many as there are stars in the sky. Thus is the way of things. So I won't talk too much about Gaia because I know there is someone far more well-versed in her presenting this evening, but to us in Varanus, Gaia is the Earth Mother. She is there at every birth like a budding flower until life inevitably fades and we must return to dust and root. She is the cycle of life and death, the natural order, nurturing us through each lifetime as we find our way. Gaia's church in Varanus currently has no structure, unlike other conventional religions. Her followers present more as a coven of equals, a reflection of the idea that one day we all return to the earth. No matter who you are in life, in death, we are all equal. They carry no titles and no rank, instead focused on the harmony of community. Were you to pray to this goddess within our lands, you might be answered by one of the 3 major earth spirits, stag, bear, or wolf, regarded by some to be her avatars in our realm. Next is Luna, goddess of the moon, yes, but also change, madness, and purity. As is her nature, no 2 followers worship the lady alike, but our shape-shifting kin flock to her presence to be embraced and seen for how they are, no matter the phase of their form. I was asked to relay this message from one of my kin who is not able to be here tonight, one who aspires to one day be Luna's champion if she should find him worthy. He said to me, "I was never raised in Luna's light the same way many who follow her in a traditional sense were. I know not of her churchly ways, her priesthoods, or even her avatars. It was never truly taught to me. All I can inform you on is how werewolves have been taught to see her. In the simplest sense, she is our mother. Mother to all shapeshifters. It is her light that blesses us when we become what we are. She is the goddess of change, of madness, of purity, and the moon. When I was younger, I was told that she was to be respected and feared equally. Her light was given, not asked for, that you could not force the moon, and that she changed of her own wishes. The reason wolves howl is not to call on her, but to pay our respect and thanks. I also do not see Luna's light of madness the same as many others do. To many, it is seen as insanity. Like werewolves that are forced to change at her fullest, people believe it is her madness that drives them. This is not how I see it. Her madness, in my eyes, is the ferocity she grants to us, a tunneled vision full of ferocity that drives us forward, not driving us insane. Much like Mother's light, her mood is quick to change. She often shifts her focus quickly or is quick to anger or happiness. Many believe the full moon to be her most powerful and the new to be her weakest. This is not so in Varanus. Each phase of the moon is powerful in its own sense, for each phase is a part of her. The full moon represents purity, a whole, a guiding and caring light in the darkness. The new moon represents madness and ferocity, and in an absence of light, instinct must then take over. Every phase in between represents her change and her transition. As I said, this may not be how many see Mother, but this is how a werewolf was raised to believe in her light. And should you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Tolkon of Varanus. I would gladly share what I know. The next deity we have in Varanus is Sultana. She's someone we were introduced to in our journeys in New Varai. Actually, they are a deity of the elements, earth, water, fire, air, and spirit, the forces that bind the world together. This deity is both male and female, always changing, always flowing. And it was actually Sultana that helped cleanse the corruption from Varanus proper, the place from which our country and our legacy were born. Sultana's church or order has 5 sacreds, one for each element, as well as a sacred of spirit who binds them all together, acting as their leader and guide. Each of the sacreds has a champion who is sworn to protect them in their spiritual duties. Last but not least is Vandor, god of vengeance and protection of the innocent. In Varanus, Vandor is the hunter that stalks the night, striking down the wicked to protect the innocent who dwell within. In the realms at large, he takes the form of a knightly warrior clad in black and silver, a stalwart paladin keeping eternal vigil. There is much I could say about Vandor, but my friend has agreed to help me begin with a song.
Vandor, can you hear me? There are battles we are fighting. There is evil that needs smiting. You've made it clear to see. When there are liches that are blinding, it is wrong, I should be righting. I've walked this path for many years. I've seen your wrath. I've dried your tears, and yet again, I call your name, for the skies have darkened, and here comes the rain. Vandor, can you hear me? For these battles we've been fighting, there's still evil that needs smiting. You've made it clear to me, idle hands aren't to your liking, so embrace your inner Viking, raise your swords, hold them to the sky, say your prayers, for we may die, and if we die, let us cry your name, let it be the last thing evil hears before we stand at your side again. Vandor, Vandor. Yeah, I think it's about right.
Thank you, my friend. Many ages ago, a great war took place between all the peoples of the world. Repeatedly, mankind called upon their gods, and time after time, the divine powers that be answered them. The gods believed it was their duty to intervene on behalf of their followers, and so they concentrated on aiding their charges and helping them to defeat their enemies. Sadly, this intervention was not without cost, and the world was greatly damaged in the process. Landscapes changed and civilizations crumbled in a sea of endless war and suffering. This world had become their new battlefield, and many people suffered under their terrible power. Bearing witness to what they had wrought, the gods convened to make a difficult decision. If there was to be any hope of humanity's survival, they would have to pull away. There could be no more intervention or interference. As the gods turned a blind eye, the battles raged on fiercer than ever. Mankind had not learned its lesson, and the cruelest of them took advantage of the divine silence. Many good people perished without their faith to protect them, dying at the hands of those whose lust for power could not be sated. One god, however, continued to watch the world, wounded by the many atrocities visited upon those whom he had once protected. That god was Vandor, and he was not pleased by what he saw. Unwilling to be a spectator, Vandor descended from the heavens in an act of defiance to answer the calls of the innocent. Through his strength, the war was ended, and the saga of suffering and betrayal had met its match. Despite mankind's joy and relief, the other gods could not ignore this transgression. Vandor had challenged their decrees, and thus he was cast out of the heavens and stripped of his divinity. For many years, he was forced to live on as a mortal, but his followers did their best not to forget his sacrifice and passed on his story for many ages. One day, these teachings were discovered by the warrior Avendar, who took them to heart and began to preach the holy word. As Avendar spread knowledge of Vandor's deeds, more followers were attracted to his side, and a formal church was born under this banner of remembrance. With the return of his worshippers, Vandor's status as a deity slowly recovered, and his powers were restored. In the end, Vandor needed mankind as much as they needed him all those years ago. He was their defender, and their faith had birthed them a champion. So Vandor's church actually has several ranks. At the bottom, you have initiates. Those are the people who wish to study on the topic of the mortal god and learn about his word, his domains, his rituals, and sacred texts. Above them are heralds. They are more than idle, curious scholars. They are the active preachers of our religion. Then you have acolytes. They are Templars in training, almost the equivalent of what you would consider a squire. They're learning the finer points of Vandor's domains and what the mortal god expects from his greatest champions. Templars are the mortal avatars of Vandor himself. We do not just have one. It's an entire order. We are his sword and his shield, and we are considered authorities on Vandor's will. Then you have the high priest. The high priest is the leader of the Templars, bringing the church together and forward momentum during times of conflict and acting as Vandor's voice in the mortal realm. Currently, Vandor has no champion, a situation our church has sought to rectify. But the place of immortal avatar is kept by Lord Sir Von Coupant, one of the best of us and a hero that we will never forget. There's far more I could relay of my beloved deity, but for the sake of time, I will say that there is more written upon our faith in the Library of Ivory, and I am also always available to speak of him, as most of you know. So if you should see me on your travels and would like to hear one of his many tales, do not hesitate to come and talk to me. And that is it for me.
Thank you, Kendriana.
Yeah.
Do people want to raise hands for questions?
Yeah, I've got my little Luna worshiper over here who's very upset that I'm playing guitar.
Rosetta, you have a question?
I do, yeah. Hi. Thanks, Kendriana. Glad to hear you feeling better again, maybe. Anyway.
Oh yes, much better.
You're welcome.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, glad to hear it. So, it's fascinating to me how familiar, like I was pretty close to a Luna worshiper for a while, and your form of Luna actually sounds very familiar to me.
Oh, good.
I'm curious. Yeah. I was curious if and Sultana is like very new to Varanus, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I think my real question is, it might be more about Varanus than your gods, but still, as a relatively new nation, I guess what role do you see your gods playing, like in your day-to-day lives? It's been very clear when you've been out being like clan defender and things, but right, when you're not out adventuring, what role do these four gods tend to play there?
They are everywhere in Varanus, from the trees we walk under. That's Gaia, right? They are our bread and butter. Without them, we do not exist.
Many of the hunters within Varanus often will give offerings to Vandor as a hunter as well, as in addition to obviously on the field it's all fire and vengeance, but he's also a great hunter. Likewise, there are many religious practices that have the more peaceful side of our gods when they're in their best light is within Varanus itself. So I don't know if that helps answer the question.
Okay. James Swift.
Testing.
Yep, we can hear you.
Excellent. So speaking again of Sultana, where would I be able to learn more of Sultana? I have seen practices of hers that don't seem to match up with the teachings that I have heard, and I would like a better place to find answers as opposed to calling a god out.
New Varai is where we were introduced to her. Many of her sacreds dwell within those lands. That's the first place I would start. Or you could talk to Hyger, who is her sacred of earth.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on. Okay. Thank you very much, Kendriana.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. All right. Which of you religious folk would like to go next? James Swift is raising his hand, so that is probably volunteering.
Yes, it is.
Okay, fantastic.
And I see that the host has disabled screen sharing. Is that intentional?
Probably not. Sir Tamars, do you know how to fix that?
I can read my pretty slides to you and just not show you the holy symbols, but I did not get much sleep to make sure that I had a slideshow.
Let me see
I
if we
believe
can fix that.
messaging Kendriana at the wee hours of the morning going, we're almost there.
If we want to maybe do another person first, I'll look into that real quick, if that works.
That's fair. You good with that, James?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking around for the settings, but I'm not yet seeing it.
And if it doesn't work out, no worries. I can just read it out loud and find a good place to post the holy symbols.
Yeah, I think Rosetta's suggestion of possibly sharing the slideshows for either Tamors or I to put up might be a reasonable workaround, but hopefully we can just figure it out so you can do it yourself.
You got it.
All right. Would somebody who does not have a slideshow be interested in going next? I think we have Twen here. We have Iowan here. Either of you interested in presenting next?
I also just figured out the screen sharing thing. James,
Oh.
will be able to do that now. If you
Okay.
want to test it out, James.
Ooh,
Oh, look at that.
fancy.
Get my popcorn.
All right. Well, then in that case, James Swift, please take it away. James?
Suspense is killing us.
Oh man, you missed my spiel because I was muted. I'm
All
done.
right.
Didn't you all hear it?
That was a
You
very
just have
quick
a cover card.
presentation. Could you go through it again for us?
Sure, I'll slow it down.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, the Noam, the Stonewood Pantheon, is 9 gods. As such, I am going to be going a little bit on the quick side to get through them. Feel free to stop with questions or wait for questions at the end. Either way. So, oh, all right, come on. There we go. Long ago, the Noam saw their lands in danger. They were faced with a hard choice. They were celestial gods, like most of the gods across the realms. And from their heavens, like Vandor saw, there was only so much that they could do. Because of that, when they saw their lands, Stonewood, in danger, they made the difficult choice to seal away their shot at being celestial gods and residing up there, and made that sacrifice so that they could walk the lands and just be. In doing so, they gained a vast amount of power within the lands, but it did have its costs. It did make them vulnerable in ways that other gods aren't. But it also means that when you call to Soren, Soren might show up. He might not send Juggernaut, Soren just might show up. And their powers together help enforce a border that is very difficult for outside forces to pass. And even if you do manage to get through the border with hostile intent, you then have to deal with 9 angry gods and 6 champions. That said, Stonewood is not the largest country out there in the realms. And having 9 gods and 6 champions, and each of these gods having other servants and beings that follow them and worship them, and some monsters that are assigned to them, it can make it feel a little bit crowded. The gods are around, which is great. It's wonderful in many ways. It's exciting. I've been informed that exciting isn't always a good thing, and I might have to agree with that. But it has had a surprising effect on the people of Stonewood. They have a strange courtesy to them. And part of it is the resilience of them. Stonewood is a difficult place to live on the best of days. It is a harsh environment with endless waves of undead, and there is always a bigger fish. But they come together well, the people do, and they are kind and they are courteous. And I would attribute one aspect of their courtesy to the fact that with such beings just being around, you simply never know who's going to overhear you. We will start with Thane. Thane is the father of the gods and the god of magic. The lands of Stonewood are bursting with magic, improving a lot of people's quality of life, bolstering our armies, and allowing a high ceiling of power for those dedicated enough to pursue it. Thane brought magic to the lands and allowed it to be a tool to be used to better people. Every spell cast within the border draws on him, and he can sense every single spell that is cast. I have seen him look up from his book and pinch a spell in midair before the spell could go off, because he did not want a particular person out there casting a particular spell. He is a great god of magic, and there is much and varied magics of the land. There's much to be discovered there as well. In his role as the father of the gods, he often has to settle squabbles and disputes of the rest of the Noem, his children, and they often turn to him when there's a difficult decision that needs to be made, or he will just make the difficult decision before they think it needs to be made, and his decisions are final. Thane does not have an active champion. He used to have a champion. That champion was lost for reasons and was, air quotes, rescued. That champion currently lives on within Sir Avernus Delcar's magic dagger, the Bloodblade. For more information about the Bloodblade, please see The History of Arcane Artifice Across the Realms by James Wood. Many worship Thane for being the father of the gods and for all he does in the country, and his more dedicated followers tend to be wizards and other people gifted with magic, as well as just him being a fairly followed deity. Thane. Solaris, the goddess of peace through war, or peace and war, depending who you ask. Solaris strives to bring peace to a chaotic land and understands that in a land as dangerous as Stonewood, sometimes it takes a strong hand to get there. She is able to be a mediator for her siblings before Big Daddy Thane has to step in. But if things start to escalate, she can definitely handle herself. And when she comes down prepared for war, she prefers peace. She wants peace. She strives for peace. When she comes down prepared for war to get to peace, it is terrifying and beautiful. Solaris has many servants. She has hosts of angels that are deployed to fight the ever-present forces of darkness, be it demons or raiders or other such chaos that just happens. There are portals within Stonewood, and sometimes things get out. The angels help with that. And they are led by the Archangel Azarath. The Archangel Azarath is the champion of Solaris and a powerful agent of peace. If he is called to, without a battle, he will be frustrated. Yes, I see a lot of, bless my heart, Azarath, and I agree.
Oh, we're fanning ourselves.
I absolutely agree. But please, just allow me to touch on current events. There are ways to request Azarath's presence. I, as a follower of Azarath, or the follower of Solaris for the last 12 years, actually have a spell, Summon Archangel Azarath. The joke has always been that the material component of that spell is a damn good explanation. Azarath is usually busy. And if Azarath is busy with something, that means it's probably a pretty important thing. 38 people shouting his name is not an appropriate way to get his attention. Just saying.
I mean, it worked.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
It worked.
He did show up. We're not known for our subtlety.
He did. But next time, maybe call to the goddess herself, and she'll delegate who, will answer the prayer.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. You'll use up all of my Solaris, please be nice to my friends. They're helping us. Boons. If you want to burn them, okay, they're finite. But she's wonderful. Next is Zargon. Many of you are probably familiar with Zargon. Zargon is probably one of the more well-known gods of Stonewood. Zargon is the god of death and undeath. He spent a long time, a couple decades ago now, traveling to the other lands of the realms, and he's one of the few who have. He has observed different countries and different magics, and has even been able to bring battle to some of those places. When someone dies in the lands of Stonewood, it is Zargon who gets to take your soul to make sure it gets where it goes. So yes, he has a bad rap because of the undeath part, but he understands and is respectful of the other gods. If I were to die today, right here and now, he would make sure that I got to Solaris. And I respect that and I appreciate that. And in a land that is as harsh as Stonewood, sometimes undead just happen. So even though he's a god of undeath, not all of the undead are his. So he keeps an eye on the ones that just happen. Stonewood citizens are lucky enough to not have to pay tax. That's because that comes later. When most people in Stonewood die, they are buried with a suit of armor and a weapon. In times of need, Zargon can call upon the Stonewood Militia. The Stonewood Militia tends to be everyone who has died. They will rise and pay their taxes, and their body will be used to combat whatever opposes us. It is also important to note that Zargon is able to do necromancy without blaspheming a soul. That is very important to recognize, and it took me a long time to accept that. I still do not like necromancy. I still don't generally approve of necromancy, but Zargon is able to do it where he, rather than binding a soul to its body to manipulate it and force it to do your bidding, he just uses some of his absurd amounts of power to fill those bodies, to act out that muscle memory, and to act as warriors for him. There are still some undead that are bound and tortured souls, and I'm still not a fan of that, but not all of them are, and that is important. Also, our army has a lot of necromancers. But as some of you may remember from the recent war against Rexan, I would rather us sacrifice 100 undead, 1,000 undead, if it means that their bodies are protecting living people. We were able to work with the Shimmeronians and set up a proper formation that put our undead into, a meat grinder to let the Shimmeronians get the better shots and the better kills and to be better protected. And that is a thing that I thank Zargon for. It is by his blessing we are able to throw corpses at a problem so the people that aren't corpses yet can survive. As far as his champion, Zargon used to have a very well-known champion, Nemesis. Nemesis was defeated some years ago by the Archlich Sir Avernus Delcar. You may know him as Bean. Bean is a high priest within Stonewood. and is the champion of Zargon. Nemesis is still around. I'm not saying it's a problem, but it's also not a problem. Soren. Soren is the god of war and destruction. While the other gods like a good fight, Soren loves one. He is bloodthirsty. And when he finishes a battle, if he wants to keep going, he will. He will find something to fight. And there are times where he has had his fight, stopped the foe, and is then just on a quest for destruction until he can have that hunger filled. And there are times where the other gods need to meet him and slow him down. And that's fine. A few years ago, Soren actually met the members of the realms in the field of battle. He was offered an insult by someone, and he took it personally. And so he challenged everyone there to a fight. But Soren is very respectful when it comes to battle. There were a number of people who had seen how this plays out, raised their hands and went, "Can we just go over there?" And Soren agreed. So long as they didn't interfere, they would be left out of it. And by golly, they got a spectacle. The Blood Ragers of Soren are some of his elite forces. They are wild and crazy and powerful barbarians and berserkers who will very often not notice their own death until long after it has occurred. They are willing to stand up to whatever threatens Stonewood or wherever they are pointed. They are masters of pretty much every weapon style so that they can use whatever they have on hand. And if they run out of weapons, they are the weapon. Soren's champion, Juggernaut, is a great warrior who is the peak of martial prowess and combat skill and strength. He is absurdly strong, and he has abilities that reflect less his own strength and might and more of what he wants or needs from a battle. He can summon a binding arena that doesn't let people escape until they have fought him, which just means that they don't get to escape. He can also teleport people to a grand arena that is beneath Stonewood proper. I have found Juggernaut most days surprisingly less on the bloodthirsty monster side and more of just a strong and proud warrior. You will notice that a lot of these beings are very prideful. They feel that they've earned it. Please treat them with respect, because the moment you don't, Soren considers it an insult and will decide to just fight everyone, which is his right. Markel. Markel is the god of healing in the lands of Stonewood. And with all the difficulties Stonewood has, having a god of healing is very nice. And having a god of healing who's a nice guy is also just very nice. In Stonewood, most peasantry, most mundane folk, cannot be resurrected from the dead like you or I can. We are hero-souled, where the common peasantry isn't. That Jarrickson fellow somehow found a loophole. We don't know what's up with that. He's a farmer. But nonetheless, having a god of healing, we can help the people before they die, and many of the followers are both skilled in healing magically as they are mundane. the temples to Markel that are placed around the country are also places of learning. They can act as small schools and gathering places. And one of the things they teach there very often is first aid. The idea, similar to the composition of a party, you might not need a dedicated healer if everyone can do it a little bit. His champion Martyr is also a very sweet being, and he has the ability to heal or help anyone. And it is great and incredible, but doing so is very dangerous for him because he gets shunted deep into the land of the lost souls, and it is very hard to get him out. And he is such a good guy that we don't want him to go back there. We don't want him to go back, please. Markel, the god of healing. Joseph. Joseph is the god of knowledge. His symbol is the skull, and that's because he most often appears as a skull. He's just a skull hanging around. Sometimes he can manifest a body if he wants. He doesn't usually. He's the god of knowledge, and Stonewood has so many ruins and ancient secrets and complex things that Joseph is easily one of the more powerful of the gods, but will very seldom exert it as much because he understands a lot more than we do about a lot of the things out there. His followers are often found in libraries, oftentimes doing transcriptions of other people's works or doing their own research. They make a great jumping off point if you need someone to bounce ideas off of, but like most other people in Stonewood and most other beings in Stonewood, they do have their own thing going on and will be a little bit annoyed if you interrupt them. It helps if you outrank them. Joseph does not have a champion, and I don't believe he really needs a champion too much. There are very few things that he concerns himself with, and most of the ones that do concern him, he takes care of. He's great. He's a god of knowledge. He is also terrifying, but you can also bargain with him. You can bargain with him for knowledge. Last fall, he helped me in learning what I needed to know about the rune stones to reforge Shadowfang. And in exchange, by October 4th, I need to write a 50-page novella for him. So I'm 10 pages in and probably should have been doing that instead of writing a PowerPoint. But you can find a way to bargain with him, and the secrets that he can reveal to you are, in my opinion, very often worth it. Galbesh. Galbesh is the god of dreams and the night. Knowledge isn't his domain, but I have been told, and I have to agree, that he might be the wisest of the gods, potentially even more so than Thane. While Thane is also brilliant and great and knowledgeable, Galbesh has insight into every person's mind when they sleep, and can use that to paint his perception. He's very tall and lithe. He's soft-spoken if he talks at all. He listens a lot. And it's been said that he's one that you almost forget you are speaking with a god, because he just engages you and speaks with you when you can get there with him. he is greatly worshipped by some of the many, or by most of the many vampires that reside in Stonewood. And he does have some pretty nifty reality warping stuff going on. He can manifest dreams and things from dreams. A lot of people have met his champion, Void. Void is also wonderful. Void is absolutely wonderful. However, most of the people don't like Void because there used to be this gross trend among the Realmsies where they would render people to the Void. And they would do that en masse. Everything they rendered out, they would, to the Void. Well, in Stonewood, when you cannot call out past the borders to your gods, Void hears these things and goes, why do I want this pile of mush? Granted, when he shows up, he is a massive null magic field. Everything there equalizes. If it's cold, it becomes lukewarm. If it's lukewarm, it just becomes room temperature. Everything normalizes, and all magic items pop. Which, as you can imagine, Adventurers of the Realms don't like. So when someone shouts something, and a being shows up and all magic items pop, the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, let's hit that thing, which is a bad decision. Many things in Stonewood are a bad decision. Galbash has control over the Land of the Dreamers, a network, a dreamscape that many people visited as they sleep and never even really understand it. It's a place of absolute beauty, but also many horrors and strange things. There are many monsters lurking there that have been made of creativity or nightmares. And Galbash can have these servants manifest to act for him. That is Galbash. Justicar. Justicar is the god of defense. Sorry, I worked hard on this one. I didn't draw this, but MS Paint is hard. So like I've been saying, these gods are walking gods and they are just around very often. Justicar is very often around. He likes to go places, see people, meet things, all of it. And because there is always danger in the land of Stonewood, got it, Pat, thank you. Oh, fuck, that was 4 minutes ago, huh? Sorry, Mike. Yeah, Justicar is the god of defense and personal justices. He helps people when there is wrong done to them. Many of the guards worship him and are generally pretty friendly unless they're on duty, in which case they are brisk because they have a very important job to do. His champion is Stonewall, who there's not much to say about him. He is a tank. He is big and having a great time out there. And when Stonewall or Justicar have picked something that they are capitalized defending, they do not fail or falter. Everything around them may turn to ash over the course of the battle, but the thing they are defending and themselves will make it through. And last but also not least, Pravidian, the god of law. He's angry and he's stubborn because the law is not very flexible. It's also important to understand that the law of Stonewood is whatever Elwyn says, which, as you can imagine, makes being a god of law very frustrating when you have to remember every single thing that the dictator of the land has said. And sure, 6 years ago, he looked at something petty and went, yeah, no kids are allowed to play ball on this street. I'm walking here. Well, 6 years later, that child, a different child, is now violating the law because he's trying to play ball on that street. And Pravidian enforces that law. It is difficult to be a follower of Pravidian because part of the worship of him is absolute respect of law and being willing and able to uphold it wherever you go. So if you venture to a different land and see a crime, it is part of your religion that you need to intervene. Even if you don't have the authority to intervene because you're in a different country, you are then supposed to turn yourself over to their law enforcement and suffer the punishment and consequences of the action, and also suffer the displeasure of your God for the fact that you have violated laws. Pravidian does not have a champion, but there's a very well-known saying in the lands of Stonewood. One judge, one jury, many executioners. Necessity is a very important thing in the lands of Stonewood. Pretty much all of the gods have some variant of you do what has to be done. You can figure out better ways and you can do your best within your guidelines, but you will do what has to be done. The Noem is a pantheon of necessity. I am super sorry for grossly exceeding my time limit. I did get carried away. I did rehearse this and try to get it thinner. Sorry, gang.
I did a great job. Thank you for taking the time, bro.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you, James. Why don't we give folks an opportunity to ask a few questions, and then we'll take a 5-ish minute break for people to stretch legs and whatnot, and then we'll come back for other presentations. Cool. So, questions for James Swift and his gaggle of gods.
Did Travis make up all of these, or was this like a collective group unit, and Travis is just the remainder of the original OG Stonewood? Or
I do believe that Travis made all of these for Stonewood plot about 22 years ago. Travis has been running events since he was 15. I am not going to say how old he is now, but he has been running events since he was 15.
20 years ago. 15. Ball, just, horrible at math. But,
ooh, good job, James.
Ooh, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite?
Yes, I am a follower of Solaris, goddess of peace through war. I very much identify with her and her teachings, and have been walking the path of the angels for a decade now. As of December 2021, I have been following the path of Solaris for 10 years. And it has been very difficult at times, but it is very rewarding to me, and it is a place that I feel that I can do a significant amount of good. That said, I do worship all of the gods, and I do respect them all in their own rights. If you want to, last fall, like I said, I went to Joseph for help with getting information about the runes. I spoke with each of the gods and asked them each for help. I would love to tell people another time how each of those conversations went, the favors they were willing to provide, and what they asked for in return. I believe that it provides some pretty valuable insight to each of them. Yes, Eric.
Sorry, I just realized I thought there was a sun god or goddess, because I mean you and Phelan had that whole thing. Did I miss that?
There is no deity of the sun. There is also no deity of
Huh.
nature. We could probably use a
Who
deity.
blinded us all? I should ask that question later
was Solaris.
about who blinded us all.
Solaris
Oh,
believed that she was spoken to out of turn, and as such decided to flex.
okay, and just gods are bright. All right, appreciated.
She decided to make it very clear that she was the light in the area, and she was the light that I call to. She can be possessive.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right, appreciated. Good talk.
Ian, is that a raised hand there? Okay, you can unmute if you want.
Cool. So regarding the whole waves of undead constantly assaulting Stonewood thing, is that Zargon's doing, or is there just something about Stonewood?
So for the most part, it's something about Stonewood. There is something about Stonewood that makes it very difficult to get a good rest in, whether that's at night or, when you die. Now, one of the other issues, and this is one that is being worked on, is that we do have this terrible necropolis floating in the sky. It's our friend. That's the city of Haven. It's a necropolis run by an Archlich, Bean. So it's a good thing, but it's also where we store a vast amount of our undead army. Well, when there was a war against the Blood Baroness many years ago, we had to mass drop our entire collection of undead to fight in the war. And unfortunately, it has been a very long cleanup process since. Every week I go out on 1 or 2 cleanups myself. For the most part, they're thinned out enough, so it's you get a group of people, you go out into the wilds, shout and draw aggro, and then round them up, and the strong enough ones we send back to Haven to restock the army, and the weak ones we crush.
Cool, thank you.
Zargon arguably could make the process easier, but Zargon also theoretically has a lot of other things going on, and it's not exactly my place to ask. I will continue cleanup crewing weekly.
It's good exercise.
Sure is. And as some of you who helped us deal with the Star Child this past weekend might remember or have noticed, Stonewood Undead are hefty. They're tough. Like I remember being pretty young and going to a Grimlock zombie survival and being like, oh, a vacation. Like, not trying to flex, it's not good, but our undead are tough.
Oh, show. Well, James, I will say that you're welcome on your presentation, not having to be just a little bit longer with that whole Star Child thing.
Yeah, so I do want to thank you guys for that. The Star Child was a terrible and blasphemic thing that had been a pain in the ass for a long time. I'm sorry that it came down in the area you guys were stationed, but I'm very thankful for it. My team was out west. There was another team a bit north of me. In parentheses, when you NPC for Stonewood stuff, you actually get to discuss what your character is doing. So I was the reason you didn't have to deal with a blood hurricane. You're welcome.
That
Fuck
sounds
blood
awful.
cultists.
Blood Hurricane.
So-
I mean, it sounds pretty metal, but at the same time, not for me.
But yes, you guys have a lot of my thanks, and you actually have the Pantheon's thanks that this blasphemic and terrible being that had found a way out from their area of influence, didn't get any worse than it was.
All right. Well, thank you, James. I think we'll say reconvene at 8:43. And if anybody who is yet to present would like to volunteer to be on deck, feel free. Twen, okay. Thank you. So yeah, 8:43, we'll have Twen present for Gaia. Talk to everybody soon.
All right.
Yeah, feel free to chat and stuff in the meantime.
God, good, because I'm feeling really, really like wired and social.
My gods are fun. They're also very scary and not always nice. They are all dicks. Like, even the good ones are dicks. Official presentation over. Let me clarify. They are
But we're
all
still
dicks.
recording. They'll hear your secret.
Oh, shit. Strike that from the record, please.
They are great. No, Kendriana definitely had a lot of fun. She thinks it is the coolest place ever.
I mean, I agree. I get to call it home. I should really get more work done on that story.
Anything in particular it has to be about?
Yeah, so actually, so it's a really cool thing that Travis does, where Travis will dig into you as a person and find what you need to do, and then he'll give you an in-character way to accomplish it. So Travis knows that Tim loves to write and has been really struggling to focus on writing a cohesive narrative instead of a million D&D games. So Joseph requested a type of story that would be fun for Tim to write. The general gist of it being an extrapolation of what could be. So a science fiction story of some sort that follows the basic logical conclusion of what a high fantasy world could be, or some such.
That's cool.
I'm choosing to take kind of a cyberpunk aspect to it and throw a bunch of high fantasy characters into a cyberpunk story or setting.
Should be fun.
Yeah. I have 3.5 months to write 40 more pages.
You got this.
Yeah.
I finally finished my book, but editing is a whole nother monster that I'm not prepared for.
Give it to me.
I should. I need Derek to finish reading it. He hasn't even read it.
Oh,
that's fair.
My mother has read it. My grandmother has read it, but not Derek.
Aw.
All right, I'm back. Did I miss any awesome gossip?
Yeah. We were talking about writing quest.
Me whoring myself out as a beta reader.
Please,
As I love to do.
No, Tuna's up there on the beta reads and really good at edits.
I think in terms of the hot gossip, we were talking about how Derek doesn't love Renee enough.
Because he won't read my book.
So that's
Oh,
a
I thought-
takeaway.
Yeah, but you know,
Hello?
there's some dyslexia maybe going on. You
Derek,
know?
you finished that book and you like it.
Yeah. Woo! Yep. May I just say to James and Zach, thank you guys for this guitar pick. It's so awesome. It's totally
Thank you
not a
guys for
blood
stopping blood
token.
magic.
When you guys took it from me, I was gonna be like, "Can I have that back later?"
Do you also understand why blood magic is so horrifying to everyone in Stonewood?
Oh yeah, no
It's
doubt.
pretty nasty.
I know I was pretty scared when I was standing there minding my own business, and then suddenly my entire nation tried to murder me.
There was a point where I was down for about 10 minutes because every time somebody went over to raise me, someone said, "No, just don't even do it." He just keeps getting corrupted. I was like, "I'll take the rest, guys. It's fine." But it was just too unpredictable. They were like, "No, we don't need to deal with them again."
And that's how we learn to do rituals. So during the Blood Wars, like every event, at the start of the event, there'd be a bunch of DIs cast to like turn blood to water as it left the body, turn blood to wine as it left the body, etc. Because the Blood Baroness kept getting wise, so you couldn't do the same one twice.
Yep. That was a good time.
Guitar pick, I love it.
I mean, it's definitely a thick guitar pick. It's definitely like a bass pick, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to use it as my guitar pick at every Realms thing forever. You know?
Test check. Is my mic working okay?
Yes, it is.
Hooray. Turns out you can't wear these style of headphones and have your hearing aids on at the same time because it creates so much squished feedback. It's actually painful.
That stinks.
So how long is the break for?
-2 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, Twin's not back yet. So we're gonna give her a couple more minutes, I guess, and if not, then someone else can go.
Okay. Can I also say I like how Jason Rosa has Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, because before Danielle was using Zoom more regularly than I was, I actually had it set to Beaker for me for a while. And Danielle was like, "Who's that? You have to change it to something else that's like not weird, like a creeper." And so I had a creeper for the longest time as well. She really wants to play Minecraft with you guys on your server because, quote, "my server, mommy, is boring." And I was like, "I don't have a server." And she was like, "Exactly. You just turn it on and make new worlds." And I'm like, "But that's what I like to do. I like to explore."
I think I've mentioned before that Danny's welcome to use your accounts to get on the Shim server.
Excellent. So I will let her know, and then it'll be up to Ian if he wants to let her play with RTC or not.
That might be a little overwhelming for Danny, I think, but
Oh, she's already saw she was like, "What's that?" And Ian's like, "So just so you know, Pat did things like," she's like, "Is that a mod? Does he have lucky blocks? Does he know about this mod and this mod and this mod?" And Ian was like, She knows way more about Minecraft than both of us combined.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But yeah, I think the mods we picked for RTC server might be a little boring for Danny / difficult intense, depending on age range.
I just saw a kid. peeking over in Kelly Vonsi's door.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. I think I interrupted you, Rosetta. Eric, what did you say? I'm sorry.
Nothing, sorry.
Oh, okay. There's Kelly.
There's a twin.
And there's an Ellie. Oh, she's like, I'm out.
A temporary Ellie.
Yep.
All right. Hi, twin.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Sorry I kept you waiting, but there were some chickens that needed cuddling.
It's all good. I'm going to mute people who are not me, and then you are welcome to take the floor. All right, twin, go for it.
All right. Hey guys, I'm here to talk to you about Gaia. I know when everybody hears Gaia, they think, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. Nature's about flowers. But most of us should know that's not the case. Sure, plants are a great aspect of nature that Gaia has provision over. But that's not all there is. For different aspects of Gaia, we have the creator, the protector, and the hunter. And I'll get into that in more detail in just a minute. What you need to understand about Gaia is she is about free will. She is about the cycle, the way things are meant to be. There are certain things that are outside of the cycle, and it is incredibly frowned upon, especially if it goes against free will. Of course, one of the banes of our existence as Gaians is undead. Undead, defiling diseases that have been created, things like that. Some of the people that you might know that worship Gaia, there's Therian of Shimmeron, Lizelle, there's members of Varanus, as mentioned. And every so often I find someone just popping up and being like, oh, hey. So we're kind of everywhere. And it's not just us humans. There are nature worshiping creatures of all sorts, working with Gaia, working for Gaia. Gaia does not currently have a champion. But Gaia does have an immortal avatar known by Autumn Rose. Autumn Rose was once a nature deity in her own right, but became weakened in the way to keep her in the cycle. Gaia brought her in under the fold of the immortal avatar. So let's talk about the different breakdowns of how Gaia works. Okay, I'm really busy. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Apparently one cat needed another cat. As it goes. I'm done. Please close the door. Rooney shouldn't be in here. I love you. All right. I love you. Yes. All right. So the different aspects of Gaia. There's the creator, the mother, and the hunter. The creator is kind of your happy-go-lucky Gaian, the one who is about flowers and you know, creation and all sorts of happy healing things and hope. Hope is a big aspect of the creator. The mother is the protector, the mama bear. She is there to take care of those under her protection, her family, anyone important in Gaia's eyes. The person who is the mother is going to be teaching others, is going to be making sure that people stay alive, as is their lot in the cycle. However, the mother is also aggressive and very much in your face about getting too close to her cubs. The mother is also known to have mercy. Finally, one aspect of being in the cycle that people often forget is how important it is to recognize death. I'm not talking about a death deity. I'm talking about a return to the cycle. I'm talking about the hunter going after people or things that are outside of the cycle. Creatures that have been created and are doing evil. People who are forcing others to do their bidding without an agreement. So the hunter will find and destroy these these well, gross, the nasty ones. You know what I'm talking about. And the hunter is willing to give a quick end to those. There is no torture when you worship the cycle. There's no pain giving. It is a quick end and a quick return to the cycle. And that's like the most brief overview of Gaia I can give you. There's no worrying about seasons because Gaia is there. You can go anywhere and Gaia can hear you. Gaia's in the wind, in the waters, in the branches, the pebbles, the sand of the beach. Gaia knows, and she's there for you if you're looking for her. Questions? I don't have fancy songs. I don't have slideshows. And one thing that Kindriana was right about is when you worship Gaia, there's no real titles. There's no high priestess or high priest. There's no giant church that you can go to. Some people do make shrines, but you're going to be able to worship Gaia just as much with a blade of grass as you are in a giant shrine.
All right, so it looks like Leica and Cronin have questions. So we'll go Leica first.
Okay, I like Leica.
Leica?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I must have been muted after. I like you as well. As you just mentioned, the guy does not have any high priestesses or champions, but does she have any avatars like mortal or immortal avatars?
Yes, she has one immortal avatar known as Autumn Rose.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
There we go. Yes, I was just waiting for my unmute. And may I just say, I don't like you, I adore you. And also, as somebody who has been a devout worshiper of Gaia throughout their realm's career, if one was seeking to potentially become the champion of Gaia, would you be able to offer any advice or potential advice in contacting Autumn Rose?
You can seek to contact Autumn Rose the way you would seek to contact most demigods or deities, through meditation, connection, or maybe the use of a spell.
All right.
You know you can communicate with the mother anytime and she'll respond in various ways, guiding you. But your dog is really cute.
I know, he's having a blast over there. He always finds a way to photobomb, like he'll move and he acts like he's annoyed by it, but Yeah, he's the star. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Of course.
All right. Any other questions for Twin before we move on from Gaia?
James Swift had one in the chat.
Oh, that's right.
Oh.
Thank you. I missed that.
Where do we have one here?
For people who might be watching a recording later, James Swift asked, what are some good ways one less nature inclined can be more respectful to her?
I mean, frankly, there's many people who are not nature inclined that are already involved in keeping and maintaining the cycle. For example, when the Aspis were forcibly removed from Darkvale recently, that was a great boon to Gaia because that was a created disease. Now, I say created diseases, there are natural diseases, and that is part of Gaia's wrath. That is when, for example, when there are too many people camping in one area for long periods of time, one by one, these people start getting sick. And the reason for something like this is Gaia saying, this isn't the way things should be. You guys need to go about your business. You need to spread out and make room for everybody. But you're already taking care of Gaia if you make sure that the basic tenets are met of respecting nature, don't burn the forest, never burn the forest, and make sure that those who are undead are always willing to be so, and hopefully come back from it and return to the cycle.
You say never burn the forest. Isn't that sort of a weird thing for someone from Ashenmark to be saying?
I'm not sure why you're saying that.
Don't you have some sort of like ever burning forest or something there?
Tucker?
No, we fixed it. It's all good now.
Oh.
Oh, got better.
Nothing to see here.
It's now called the Never Burning Forest.
It was just because of the pretty colors in autumn.
Ah, okay. Well, I'm
Fire
glad
can
I'm just
also
behind the times then.
Nice save.
Fire can also be natural to Gaia as well. She does burn forests on purpose, but it is when people burn forests out of her plan that it is a problem.
Exactly.
So Gaia is a scheduled arsonist. Got it.
Schedule is kind of a loosey-goosey term.
I mean, we all are scheduled arsonists in our own way. Do you guys cook? I mean, come on now.
Define cook, because that's why I'm a scheduled arsonist.
All right, I'm gonna leave you guys with one quick question. What's brown and sticky?
I know the answer, so I'm not going to answer.
A stick. That's Gaia joke.
It's true.
All right, I love you guys. I'll chat later.
James Swift had one more.
Oh, go.
How much is weather a part of her domain?
Absolutely. There's I can't imagine a reason weather wouldn't be in her domain. She helps water the crops. The water from those flows down the streams into the oceans where the fish exist. It's all intertwined. It's all part of the cycle.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Twin.
Yay, Twin.
All right. Which of you worshiping people wants to go next? Leica has volunteered quietly in text form.
Great. Pat, can I share my screen, or do I need? I think I sent it to you as well already, but
Yeah, I saw that. Whatever T'Morris did for James, he should be able to do for you as well.
great. Let me check that real quick. Oops. Sec. Okay, can people see my screen all right?
Yeah.
Great. So my name is Leica and Nar. And I'm here to talk about Aurora. As you can see in front of you, this is Aurora's holy symbol. It is the 8-pointed star. Do not confuse this with the symbols for Blackwood. Our points are exactly the same, and we are on a white star on a black field. But it is a very old symbol that is in her church, has been around for, I think, 3 decades now. Introduction. We are the faithful of the common man. It is the farmer's hope that his crops will grow strong. It is the mother praying for the sun to chase away the darkness and protect her children. It is the promise of a new day and the light to come. This is our faith. This is an old Auroran proverb. Aurora has 4 main aspects or domains. The first one is faith. Faith is in believing in oneself or in others, and spirituality. Hope is believing that nothing is truly hopeless, and no one is beyond redemption. Light is being the beacon in the darkness and showing one's true leadership, being that person in front. And purity is incorruptible, untainted, honest, and honorable. And as you can see, they all represent the 4 large points on the star. The paths of devotion. So Auroranism has 2 main sects. You have the churches and you have the unaligned parts. So I'm going to mostly go over the churches, but some of these do go with people that aren't part of the major church. So generally speaking, when a person starts walking the path of light, they start off as an acolyte, and from there they can choose basically 4 paths, and you don't have to follow one of these specifically, one of these paths, but these are just ones that are most people have gone down. And the priest is the preacher, is the person who will speak the word of Aurora. The scholar is the one that will go into their tomes and learn about prophecies and about ancient lore. And I'll go over the Library of Ivory later on. The Templar is the shield of the church. They are Aurora's followers that protect the holy sites, the holy cities, and the church. The servant is the sword. They are the ones that serve in her name and are often fighters, but are often the ones stepping up and doing what needs to be done. Beyond that, beyond the mortal paths are the higher paths. You have the hunter, which is a very archaic way of worshiping Aurora. It is more of the style of a chosen enemy of or a group of Aurorans that have chosen to destroy a certain type of enemy, maybe undead, or let's say the darkness. But it is a very, very archaic one that predates the church. The angel talkers are people that when they were born or when they became older in life, they started hearing whispers of the angels telling them either prophecies or giving them information that was key to help becoming either a prophet or to be to gain insightfulness. A seraphim is when an angel is bonded with a person and has extended their life, and they become one in whole. So they bond with that angel. And a chosen is a human, or often, or an elf that has been born and has taken on Aurora's direct power. Some might equate this to almost a mortal avatar. And speaking of avatars, Aurora has 2. First is her mortal avatar, which is Alcar Mortress, King of Coventry. The throne of Coventry will always hold the seat of power of Aurora's mortal avatar. Before Alcar, there was King James, and that will be a story for a much longer time, but certainly the king who sits upon the throne of Coventry is the mortal avatar of Aurora. Aurora's immortal avatar is Dana. She is the daughter of Aurora and Garm, and she leads a group of angels known as the Silver Legion. And I'm going to start going over a couple pantheons that Aurora is included in. The first off is the Gaian pantheon. As we just saw, Gaia is the Mother Earth. She birthed many children. The first one is the Gray Man, which is the farrier of the dead. Then we have Aurora, who is the goddess of the sun, and we already went over her aspects of hope, light, faith, and purity. Luna is the sister to Aurora, who is the goddess of the moon and change, and a second goddess of minor light and minor purity and madness. And Vivant, who was formerly known as Dio, has been reborn as the goddess of rebirth. Now, in that pantheon, Aurora is married married Garm, the god of balance, and had a daughter with Dalandana, as you can see in the genealogy right there. The second major pantheon that Aurora is called the Pantheon of the Greater Gods. The following gods are in this pantheon. They're basically the big gods of the world, and the pantheon's changed over time. As you probably noticed, Rexan is not currently on here because we've recently killed Rexan. The gods are as follows: Aurora, Justari, Vandor, Gaia, Roanum, Garm, Antioch, Kronos, the Chaos Wheel, the Dark One, and Dionin. Now, to explain the Chaos Wheel, it's pretty much all of the gods of chaos are they wholly have one spot on this pantheon. It's not like you can simply say Luna is in the pantheon of the greater gods. She is, but she's only an aspect of the Chaos Wheel. Harlequin is also in that Chaos Wheel. So is other gods like Ariok as well. But if you want to learn more about the pantheon of greater gods, we can have a long conversation about this, but I'm mostly going to stick to Aurora. Notable historical events for Aurora: the death of Dalandana. There's definitely a great story on that one. I highly suggest people check on and read it. It's in the View from Valhaven. If you want a link to it, I can also give that as well. And the life of King James and the Sword of Kings, same over there. The Ascension War was a war in the, I want to say, early 2000s, where several gods had decided to give a boon through a challenge of their mortal followers, their champions, their high priests and priestesses, to actually see who would ascend. And there's a great story in there, and I'm not going to spoil it, but again, there was a lot of there was a lot of death. There was a lot of great moments. Someone did ascend, and there was a lot of retiring and ascension for many of the characters there. The Bedlam War was the war of darkness, where the eternal darkness would sweep over the lands, and Aurora was the greatest weapon against Bedlam. And most recently, the Rexan War, which was to reclaim Darkvale. Aurora has three main churches. One of them is in Ivory and is headed by the High Priestess Phelan Shadowmoon. The second one is the one in Coventry. That's the Southern Church, mostly known as, and has a High Priestess Bianca. And we have a third church in Sharon, which is by under myself, which is Priest Leica and Nar. There's many other many other churches throughout the realms. Aurora is worshipped almost universally. There's certainly some areas where there's exceptions, but she is a very, very common goddess to worship, and you'll see smaller churches rise up. These are just the big ones. Cultural significance. So she's got two nations that are mostly devoted to her. We have Ivory. The city of Ivory is a well-developed city-state situated at the mouth of the Armont River. The city is where many Auroran Templars reside and holds the famous Library of Ivory. In Coventry, the Church of the South holds Aurora's seat in power, is the location of King Alcar and the Knights of the Crown. Associated groups, the Knights of the Crown. While not a knighthood specifically for Aurora, Aurora is the patron of the order and gives her blessing to the knights. I myself am a Knight of the Crown. If people want to learn more about the Knights of the Crown, we can have a separate talk as well. The Church of Justari and the Church of Vandor. Aurora has strong ties to both Justari and Vandor, and followers have been known to work together as parts of the triad. Bring hope to the people, seek justice for them, protect them. If they cannot be protected, bring swift vengeance in their name. And finally, the Church of Garm and the Knights of Garm. Aurora and Garm have a strong but often contentious ties between their followers. Now, A little bit on Garm. Garm is the god of balance and the enforcer of the gods. While Aurora and Garm do have a daughter together, they do often come at ends with one another. Aurora believes in good first and foremost. She does not have to follow the rules, but she's forced to. And her church often comes at ends by the Knights of Garm, which tries to enforce the balance of the world. And oftentimes our paths align, but sometimes they don't. And that can be a problem sometimes. Players' interactions with a god. So if you interact with Aurora, she often assists those who do good. You do not have to be a worshiper to call upon her. She will, again, if you call upon her, unless you are someone of notable, unless you're trying to do something specifically evil or someone that's notably evil, she will likely want to help you. And she specifically does not ask for sacrifices. Aurora does not ask for people to give up another life or to give your blood up or sacrifice in her name. She does not want any of that. She just wants to bring hope to the world. And second off, within her church, she tries to redeem those who fall to darkness and spread the light and do good in the world. Aurora has several artifacts. First off are the Tears of Aurora. These are crystallized faith that Aurora has shed from her as she wept upon great mercy and great sadness. Most notably, they were created when her daughter Donna died. But there have been several situations where a tear has been created, often through great tragedy, and those have immense power, often being able to create a sort of light or to temporarily make a person as powerful as, say, an avatar. The second one is the Mangosha St. Daniel. St. Daniel was Aurora's, as far as we know, Aurora's first champion. And that was his sidearm. That was the blue sword that I had on me until very recently. Is a great symbol of Aurora and the church, and has been used to fight against the darkness, and it's been very useful in the past. Thirdly is the Bones of Shoshana. We have a 2-foot and a 2'2" swords. These were made from Squire Shoshana, which is St. Daniel's squire who ascended during the Ascension War with St. Daniel when he perished at the Well of Lost Souls. Again, another source of light. Fourthly is Val's cloak. Valerie Hart is a person of quite renown. She's hope, the body of hope to me. And she perished to save Bedlam, to destroy Bedlam and to save the realms, along with two other people. But mostly Val's cloak is a magic item that if is worn by a person, they can do a raise dead on another person as long as they don't know the person's name. And once the raise is completed, the first act that the person must do is must ask that person what their name is. And Val was very big about trying to learn other people's names and try to be as friendly as possible. Fifthly is the Sword of Kings. This is a relic that even I don't know that much about, but it's an item of balance that allows mortals to either temporarily put a god out of commission or possibly straight up destroy them. It is an intelligence sword that has a large amount of history. It's about 30 years old and is often used in acts of great valor, in saving others and in putting other gods in their place. And then finally are the Swords of Light. There's so many Swords of Light out there, I can't name them all, but if it's a Sword of Light, it likely is an artifact of Aurora. Notable Aurorans, these are just a few lists. Again, there's many on here that I have not named, but if you can recognize any of these people, feel free to reach out to them, or if you want to ask about their stories, I can always try to help you out with those. We have Daniel Rosenblade, Randall the Light, Sir McCry, Cathrellan the Red, Mokta McCry, Kane Ladarius, Phelan Shadowmoon, Rel Zara, Amergan Valerian, Quinn, Magnus Heavyhammer, Leica Anar, Tirvanel, James Swift, Garen, Margaret August, and Anton. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, thank you, Leica. Yeah, feel free to raise hands, or I mean, you can unmute and ask a question if you'd like, or put it in chat if you prefer that option.
Okay.
I have a question, actually.
Yes, go ahead.
So you mentioned a few times that Dalandana died.
She did.
But also is the immortal avatar?
Correct. So this gets a little complicated, but basically the avatar of Dionin, who was known as the champion, again, that was their name, okay? He killed Dalandana. And that's what caused the Tears of Aurora to come out. But the champion, once he was defeated, and I want to say the demon of corruption, Michael, was redeemed, he brought back Dalandana, and Dalandana was once again reborn. Now, Dalandana's been around since then. She's immortal, so if she does get destroyed, she will be brought back, as long as it's not like another god destroying her or whatnot. So that's why the avatar was able to destroy another avatar. So if it's a mortal destroying her, it's not going to do anything. She'll come back. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I know I threw a lot of information out there, and I know a lot of it I said, if you want to have any questions, you can ask me later, and I can certainly be out there. I mean, there's a lot of lore for Aurora, and I highly suggest if people want to learn about her, either look at the Library of Ivory or reach out to me, and I can try to help you out. There's about 30 years of lore about her.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Out of all of her domains, do you hold them kind of in equal regard? Is there one that you think is more important than the others?
I highly represent hope. And it's a bit, again, I believe everyone can be redeemed. And I believe that nothing is truly hopeless out there. And also, the one that I love was Valerie Hart, and she represented hope as well. And I take that to myself, and I represent hope more than all the other three, but hope is the greatest one for me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. If we don't have any other questions right now, we can move on to Antioch with Sir Iwan.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Yeah.
just Jana.
Oh, okay. Just Jana.
Yeah, because I really tried. So I'm just doing it objectively, mostly as Jana. Do I just do share screen? Is that it?
Tucker is Morse is nodding yes.
Okay. Share screen. There we go. Share. And then slideshow. Can you guys all see the slideshow?
I
love this.
All right, sweet.
It might be worth letting Bright know real quick that he is audible. But
He is audible. He's just chatting with Aaron, though. If it gets obnoxious, let me know.
okay. All right,
He is
take
on
it
his
away.
own headphones. All right. Hi. I'm here to present briefly about Antioch of Magic, Fate, and Reality, also God of Perpetually Busy off screen. In the beginning, just Antioch, if you please. There's varying tales and origin stories about Antioch, and it legit depends on which mage, reality mage, or person that you talk to. Even the original creator for the Rantheon, as it were, when he helped to make Antioch more of a thing for the realm, so more solidified, he has a bazillion different origin stories for Antioch. It's only in the last 25 years, possibly 15, that Antioch is starting to actually solidify and have a backstory, meaning that people can actually trace it to, this is when the mortal remains was found in the Valley of the Gods. This is when it was discovered he was just a really old god, not a titan. And there were less humorous things and more things that made him accessible. It wasn't just some nebulous, chaotic god of magic, as it were. Antioch, when he's represented, always carries a staff, wand, book, or orb. And he's a road wizard in varying looks and times at gatherings. He has also inhabited mortal hosts and puppets in the past. Library of Ivory said about many years ago, I put the date up there, that Antioch is a god of magic. Domain was magic, reality, creation. But what about fate? These symbols are random magic circles / signs with an avatar Minerva. The plot marshals at this point is the general realms, and the area of influence is realms, as it sees fit, and Coventry. Antioch is sometimes referred to as the god of magic, regardless of the area of influence amongst the most magical study inclined. It is also said that for every wizard and sorcerer that does not invoke a more classic religious deity when wielding their magics, they are using the powers blessed to them through Antioch. Antioch is also the god that students and teachers of reality magic tend to invoke. Oh, that says tend to invoke. I can change that later. Tend to invoke when practicing this brand of magic. While Antioch himself has not been seen, it is thought in Coventry that the persona is that of an ancient yet decidedly male wizard. Well, what's creation versus what's fate? Webster thankfully helps me out and says that creation is the action or process of bringing something into existence, while fate is the development of events beyond a person's control, regarded as determined by a supernatural power. As Minerva puts it, yes, Gaia came into being, but somebody had to make all the stuff and determine what stuff goes where and when and how. That somebody in Minerva's books is her father, Antioch. Daughter? Yes, Antioch has 2 daughters. The first is Minerva, who came forth from Antioch's creation, fully formed and given dominion in dreams. A demigod in her own right, Minerva is Antioch's immortal avatar. If one spots her, she's usually dressed in an elaborate coat of blue with a blue and gold sash and a necklace which is a chain of gems. Usually wearing sandals, Minerva has one of the 2 staves or staves of Antioch and a ring of keys. The second is a heroic child, currently known as Danny Danger of Folkestone. Created through magical yet more mundane means than Minerva, the younger daughter is a fighter at the time of this presentation, although showing much interest in magic. Danny Danger is also able to weave stories like her elder sister, although not entire sagas yet. She shows a passion for art as well. Okay, back to Antioch, specifically reality. Once upon a time, at least a few decades ago, there were 3 powerful guilds that wielded incredible magical power, invoking Antioch in doing so. The good, the evil, and the neutral guilds all made up the Church of Antioch. And despite alignments, when the church was threatened, all worked together. Years later, however, reality mages of many types started abusing the power of shaping reality. While a few adventurers, such as the retired Relzara of Ruar Tharsin, the High King Hyger of Varanus, and the missing Sir Laurent Duran of the Wellman, skilled reality mages, didn't fall to temptation, it came to the point that Minerva was sent and attacked Coventry, Aurora's holy city, and decimated the guilds, effectively resetting what powers, if any, that reality mages can wield at all. Reality eggs and other artifacts of Antioch's lost their magical enchantments, and the second of the 2 Antioch staves went missing. When we talk about circles and signs, there's 2 versions that I can give you right here. One made by me, one created by Stephen Sanford. His is much nicer looking if you need to do cry cuts or anything like that. The Antioch symbols. But basically what it boils down to is whenever you are creating some sort of ritualistic circle, especially the more complicated ones, you're pretty much making a symbol to Antioch, whether you realize it or not. This god is usually perpetually behind the scenes. When polled in research, it was found that Antioch had not had a gathering centered around him, but Antioch or representatives of Antioch tend to show up at important magical gatherings when spell changes happen, or God's moods, where magic can be unbalanced / rebalanced. This is due to the facts of Antioch being super busy behind the scenes, answering all magic users anywhere, everywhere, measuring how much or little magic in any given situation ought to be expended, making sure stuff is usually created and placed in time for the newer adventurers to find neat things in a dragon's hoard, and so forth. And since Antioch is so busy, he never purposely heads to the limelight. Perhaps that's why he would be his devout worshippers have considerably dwindled over the years. But maybe if Antioch rebranded to look more like Rowanam, things could start looking up. Insert Sagan wizard here. And that's the Antioch presentation.
That is lovely. Well done.
Excellent. Thank you, Jana.
You're welcome. Now I don't know how to make the screen bigger again. Let me try. But if anybody has any questions, I can certainly try and answer. It turns out a lot of the research covered is pretty much almost all the same things. And oddly enough, if this were a case to say, hey, who do we want to, you know, give to Garm next or something like that? Originally, I was like, give Garm to Garm next, but Antioch, even with the rebranding, he's pretty much the realms now at this point. He's not, or I don't mean like he is the realms. I mean more that he doesn't need worshipers. He doesn't need a church or any of that stuff because so many people use magic in the realms. And so if a person believes this particular hype about the god of magic, then technically the job is done. It's kind of like having a god over on the sidelines just being like, you know, good job, instead of a god that might be helicopter parenting and they're making sure that their followers are always alive and always safe and stuff. Antioch is definitely the one like, hey, go outside, play until nightfall, don't break a leg. And if you do, come crawling back to me and maybe I'll see if I can heal it, or I'll just give you a popsicle or something. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Does anybody have any questions?
Looks like Steven does, possibly
What's up?
like a.
So Antioch is a creator god. Is there a story of how he was created, how he created the universe as well?
So yes and no, and it depends on who you talk to. So for Auroran worshippers, they really do believe that Antioch is actually a greater god. But Antioch himself at this point, if one were to compare him to what constitutes a greater god and followers and what have you, from a PC standpoint, he's no longer a greater god. You have more worshippers of Adene than you do of Antioch, and that says something. If you're going by literally just word of mouth and common household language, then yes, Antioch's pretty decent. You know what's also decent? Laundry detergent. You need it, and it's great when it's there when you need it, just like Antioch.
But
Does that
is
help?
there an origin story of how the world was created through Antioch?
So the answer is yes. Randy Gordon has changed it quite a few times, and then it was reset underneath Dave Key Wallace and Matt Davio and Leanne, and now it is being currently reset under Tom Gallagher. So your guess is as good as mine.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let's be real. All of these could change dramatically in a few months. It's fine. I'm going to jump on the Sokka train and just not worship any gods. Choo choo.
Have you experienced the light of Vandor?
No, man. I saw what happened to the last guy you did it. I'm not ready to retire yet.
Oh,
I can make
yeah.
that joke.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Oh.
All right. Well, that's all I got for all you happy people. I hope that you enjoyed.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Tiger always tells us about Antioch stories.
Yeah.
Antioch was amazingly good / crazy go nuts, more chaotic, especially when Randy Gordon would play him. I have played the puppet on Randy's behalf before of Antioch, the whole, literally the puppet wizard, where you hold it and you talk it and everything. And the puppet was very fond of thumbing people to death.
Yeah,
If they were
Hagar was
reality
telling us
magic.
about the puppet last weekend, and he was like, "How you think I learned reality magic?" Antioch has definitely come up a lot at Varanian campfires, so you can take great pride in that. There have been many Varanians like listening to lovely little stories of those old events.
All right, well, then this last picture needs Tiger's seal of approval. See if you can send it to him and maybe Keith on the side, and we could switch Keith from being Rowanam to Antioch. I mean, I'd worship him.
All right. Well, thank you then, Jana. Looks like we had kind of a question thought from Kirsten, but it didn't really seem like a question. Do you want to clarify that?
If I am reading it, the question is, oh, it's a run-on sentence. Okay.
Yes.
So I was asking around a while back with if there was a really, if there was really a god of knowledge / wisdom in the big pantheon. I knew Antioch was magic creation, but parentheses, especially given the rebranding mention, it seems like he could also be knowledge under the he's seen everything that's ever existed to the point of being where reality magic comes from. It depends on who you talk to. So everyone, again, this is why I wanted to present it more from an out of character standpoint. Every god is a god of knowledge, let's be frank, because whatever magic marshal you call to and whatever god that you get is going to have the information that you need at that time, or they're not. The Dark One might not know exactly what Aurora is up to at any given point, but he'll definitely know what path to go to get the best outcome for his followers. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, every god is a god of knowledge, and you can learn something from every god, whether you want to or not. The only, I want to say gods of knowledge would be Joseph. And in the Norland, I think it's Sovereign. Don't quote me on that. Oh, goodness gracious me. There are lots of demigods and great librarians historically from what I was reading from the analog and the views. But yeah, specifically a god of knowledge. Oh, there was also oh gosh, I always forget his name. It's played by Patrick Bobel. There's a small god named Shiahu, who's Truth and Stories. So that's another small god that you could do. Yeah, if you'd asked me this 10 years ago, I probably would have had a specific, 1 or 2 person answer for you. But now that I'm way older and played a hell of a lot more, every god is a god of knowledge. They just know what they know, and that's it. I hope that answers your question, even if even if that answers up opens up more questions.
All right, well, that is everybody we had lined up who didn't have something come up as a conflict.
Cool.
So does anybody have like general questions, or did they think of a question for a presenter who's still here that we didn't get to cover right after their presentation?
Seriously, if any of you guys are really good friends with Keith, I love that last picture that I found. I asked for an old
hysterical.
bald battle wizard, and that's what I got. And I was like, damn.
Yeah, you nailed it.
It's like Keith should wield that.
Yep.
It almost looks like he's an Ashen Mark battle priest, gonna be honest.
Yep.
I mean, there's random deity knowledge that all of us, I think, randomly have too, if people just want to ask about X, Y, and Z that might not even have been covered here.
I think I'm so oversaturated. You guys did such great jobs having all these presentations that it's all marinating. There's all sorts of plot hooks that I'm excited to come and check out in all your lands. So at least for me, it's mission accomplished. I'm excited. Good job.
For what it's worth, quite looking around, possibly we all know this already, but several people referenced like standards of gods. Like lots of us understand, like for the concept of mortal and immortal avatars were just casually thrown around. Would anyone like to hear an overview, right, of like what is J random deity like in the realms? What are assumptions you can make? Because almost everyone explained their gods in terms of how they were different from the default. No one ever actually covered the default. Note, I'm not volunteering to give this default. I don't know it.
No.
I mean, like, I know it, but not well enough to like tell it. And so the question then is, does anyone else want to hear, or is everyone else roughly where I am? We're like, yeah, I think I've got the feeling. So whatever.
I think in that same junction, you just kind of sparked a thought for me in related to that. That since we did this whole thing in character, we didn't necessarily talk about who marshals what gods in the realms, which might be useful for a lot of new players that aren't used to. Like you say, like you can cast the seer magic, but if you
Oh.
only hit a couple of events, you might not know necessarily what events that's
Also, I forgot we're being recorded, so people who aren't here might also learn from this. So yes, we should definitely cover the defaults.
that'd be helpful.
Yeah. Do I have to do this because I brought it up?
Yes, because I need you to jog my memory, because otherwise I got nothing for you.
I might leave you to it, sir.
All right.
Haha, Magus Prime, you got to do it.
So, generally, and again, we have heard nothing but variations today, unless somebody does something really clever with the editing buttons. So, most of the time, gods in the realms are beings of immense power dedicated to one or more particular concepts. They are often considered to be not simply a very powerful person. You can't just gather more and more power and then suddenly you were God. They were a god. There was some type of state change that happens, even in the cases where we talk about someone having ascended. But you probably knew all this because you just have that implicit sense of what a god is like. The particular things that we note about gods in the realms are they ordinarily do not come and walk among us in the realms. That is probably a good thing. The stories about them doing that are generally very destructive. Instead, their forces often are carried by their avatars. Frequently, especially if there were a lot of rules in place, they have probably one immortal avatar, which is often a demigod in their own right, or an angel, or something similar to that. And then one or more mortal avatars, which is still pretty big, but sometimes is a role that can be carried even by an adventurer or someone more of that ilk. When a mortal avatar is explicitly acting as a mortal avatar, they are more likely to be bound by rules than at other times, as opposed to the truly just ordinary mortals who to some extent may just be more of a church, who are colloquially high priest and champion. The high priest theoretically taking on more of the spiritual roles and the champion taking on more of the martial roles. Thus, when we see schisms in churches, there might be multiple high priests, and that doesn't break reality in a way which at least one time I thought that multiple immortal avatars could, although some gods have said, whatever, I'll have multiple immortal avatars. So who knows how that really works. Those are the main things that occur to me in terms of roles. Again, each god then will have their own ideas about like artifacts that are sanctified to them and what their holy days are, and if there are any particular creatures outside of the simple like immortal avatars and churches, such as I know like werewolves being very sacred to Luna, even though each individual werewolf doesn't necessarily have a place in this divine hierarchy. Other notes about gods: it is colloquial wisdom these days that they are dependent on belief to survive and for their power. The existence of various gods, despite little belief, does throw some of that into question, but you will definitely hear people quote it. Yeah. That's what occurs to me as like these are the things that everyone was throwing their gods in contrast to, like, oh, we're Stonewood and gods just walk around, or we're Fae and we don't care about having particular things like avatars. There's a suggestion for someone to give the elevator pitch for the Rantheon. I cannot do that, but I bet Leica can.
Oh, the Rantheon? Yes, one can do the 90-second elevator pitch for the Rantheon. Hang on, let me pull up my timer. I think I can get one. Yes, you. Toolbars, clock. Fuck that, you're too slow. All right, I'll pull up my phone. Oh, I just swore, sorry. Timer. 90 seconds. Go. Okay, so the 90-second blurb for the Rantheon. Once upon a time, there was a guy named Randy Gordon, and he was tired of everybody and their mom, because back then you could throw events still willy-nilly, but basically people had more money and more followers and all this stuff. And so basically what they said goes. And Randy was like, I'm tired of this BS. And the rest of the Southern Waste that was with him was like, we're tired of it too. Randy, specifically Mike Palumbo, who still to this day gets really pissed when people call it the Rantheon, because it was actually made, trivia question, by the entirety of the Southern Waste. Randy's name is the one that just gets stuck to it because he's the only one specifically who stuck to it. The rest of the Southern Waste were like, oh, that's really nice. That's really cool. Here's all of our ideas. Here's all this other stuff. And Randy's like, okay, and I'm going to codify it and make it this really cool thing. I've written it down, guys. And they're like, sweet, we'll do all the makeup. We'll do all this other stuff. And Randy was like, and then I'm going to change it. Then I'm going to change it again. And then I'm going to change it again. And the Southern Waste just kept following him, and they kept throwing amazing events. And they were called Randy events because they weren't specifically in the Southern Waste. And almost every single one of them had an amazing God character that would come from what we now know as the Rantheon. There you go.
Mhm.
And the crowd goes wild.
Let's not forget the quote from Randy Events is, we can't make Kyle fly out of the trees, Randy.
Yeah, your NPCs don't fly. I remember that event. That was scary because Randy's response to that was, we got a zip line, because we were on Abe's land at the time, and Abe did have a zip line. I still don't remember if it was Beth or somebody else that broke their arm later going down the zip line. Oh, your NPCs can't fly. So good.
I have a random question if the Fae person is still here.
I love random
No,
questions.
no,
and
but
there's
I can
lots
stand.
of Fae people here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can.
go to
I
Eric.
can
Go to
definitely
Eric.
speak for Tara.
So as far as like, because they act so differently than the gods, if I were to just like casually ask a Fae, like, do you consider like Tinku Cullen and Queen Nimbus to be as powerful as gods? What would they say?
Oh, as powerful as gods, yeah, sure. Especially within the realms of their domains.
Do they
like
consider
Fae and
themselves
such.
like at the same, like, would they consider themselves gods or no?
Yeah, that is a good question. The Tara, very briefly, at the War of Shadows, where we failed to take back Darkvale 10 years ago, Tara called on their majesties because that was the appropriate thing to do. However, there were lots of rules and gambits in place, and so she was then told it is now considered that they are among the pantheon of the greater gods. Interestingly, you will not find them on the list, for example, that Leica brought up, and I don't think they're part of the Chaos Wheel either. So, yes, that is a theologically tricky question. Personally, speaking as the counselor to the queen, I would advise their majesties to not consider themselves gods. There is some stupidity going on with mortal gods and some wars right now, and their majesties should just stay out of that. And I hope
You'll
to have
notice
the
I've never taken the field.
right. So, yeah, that's my answer to that.
Much appreciated.
I know Adrian asked this earlier about marshals too, which I'll answer, is largely all over the place. Most event holders are comfortable making like on the fly calls for any sort of divine magic. But usually if you want something like more plot heavy, you'd have to see what the person running the plot. A lot of the gods in the games now don't necessarily have a specific plot marshal. They've kind of dispersed into the community as those marshals, original marshals stopped playing and different people kind of picked them up. So the best thing is just to ask around. I know some of them are a little bit more obvious, like the Stonewood stuff. You're probably gonna talk to Travis Wilcox from Stonewood, or the Blackwood Gods, Blackwood. And I think, again, event older teams that throw that content are usually more comfortable, stepping over those lines, because at events, the event holder is king, and that is an awkward piece sometimes that happens where continuity issues. But to answer that question,
Sultana, the elemental deity, that is Matt Butler's territory. So he would be the one to go to for Sultana.
So we have multiple questions now, or at least we have a question in chat and 2 hands raised. Hand raisers, are those like answers or responses to a asked question or something new?
I just wanted to build off of what Tucker said before we get to the Church of Chaos thing.
Same.
Okay. Cool if I go first, Tim?
Go for it.
All right, yeah. So just like, since I think that's really important what you were saying, Tucker, and I wanted to expand on that on the like purely out of character perspective. So since gods are a key part of role playing for a lot of characters, right? Like, I mean, because for a lot of people, it's a fun part of playing in a fantasy game. And so I see my role as a magic marshal when someone comes up to me and they say, oh yeah, I'm going to call on, not even like my god, like this god to do that, right? Like generally that is the flavor with which they are doing their ritual. And like the first instinct is to support whatever flavor someone's doing for their ritual. If I happen to know more about it, you know, I can fill in more details, but I'll try not to be like, oh no, right? Like I can't touch Gaia because like that's Kelly's territory, right? Like because then you can't.
You just got the finger wag.
Well, right. Because then you couldn't be as good a Gaia worshiper in the realms, and that would be sad, right? So thus it's better to, and you know, like that's why the Magic Marshal asked you, like, I don't know Thalie, can you tell me a bit more about her? Which I have definitely directly said before to the Baron, and you know, got some answers and then ran with it. And it's then important for the individual plots of gods to be able to handle if a god did something which was really out of character. They think Aurora has stories about demons and so on, the Aurora Church does. But right, like generally that's usually not a problem, especially because if you care enough to worship the god, you probably won't ask them for something impossible. Like, oh, I know that like currently, you know, Garm is stapled to a chair and can't answer things. If I care about that, I probably won't call on Garm elsewhere, etc. So yeah.
Excellent and well said. That's pretty much what I was gonna say. Marshals tend to do their best to respect the theme, and I have seen many times where the marshal isn't as familiar with the god and goes like, oh, tell me how you worship this god. Oh, tell me about your interactions. Tell me a bit about your religion, rather than just like hard nose. It sucks to get a hard no, especially when religion is a major character gimmick.
Yup.
As someone from the nation of a hard nose to other people's character gimmicks, I get it. I get it.
All right. Well,
so who can answer the Chaos Church question?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to lead into.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
I certainly am not a chaos person, but we do have some chaotic people around.
So which Church of Chaos do you want covered? Like the very first analog written Church of Chaos was the Church of the Cat Lord, which eventually became the Church of Chaos, which Sir Arcanine, and I forgot the other guy's name, basically decided, let's stop fighting, let's actually like work together. And that lasted about as long as you think with chaos. But there's also the Chaos Wheel. There's also the Five Ladies. So there's Ariok, who stands by himself when he and Loth are not hanging out together. Ariok is not to be confused with Antioch, which I just had to deal with that with Tarnisha a few hours ago. So yeah, which chaos are you leaning sort of towards?
I don't actually know who the person is based on their very not realms username, and I don't think they've spoken yet.
Is it Chocobo 911?
Yeah.
That's Twen's mount.
So they said they heard there were two churches, which I think what Jana was kind of getting at was there's actually probably more than two churches. It's kind of like a very large collection of kind of a lot of. I think it's a way. It was a way. I think that the quote unquote churches of chaos is more of a term to kind of inclusively like group all of the different chaos gods, because there's probably upwards of like 15 plus of them at this point.
Yeah, because if you had an actual church of chaos, then you'd have a ordered, defined system and with a foundation, and nobody wants that in chaos, right?
Yeah, so I think you'll find a lot of people will worship a specific chaos god, not just like necessarily I don't think there's many people who worship like the pantheon wheel. But I think that was kind of the premise is because chaos gods are chaotic in nature, like any one of them could represent it at a given time.
Like right now, Pi could be worshiping the Church of Chaos by knitting a tea towel with the chaos wheel on it. I have no idea. That's kind of neat. What is that?
I am working on a double knit lace shawl for Desert Bus for Hope. It's gonna take a while.
All right. Do we have any other deity related questions, prompts? We're about 5 minutes out from our scheduled end time, but if people do want to hang out, that's fine.
Yeah, socialize.
Just as long as we keep hanging out until after Jason needs to use it for school, because that would be truly chaotic. Just still be here when his students show up.
That would be something.
No, I think school is actually done. I might be wrong.
No.
Depends on where.
I was gonna say, oh, well, I know it depends on where. I know that Connecticut, or at least my cousin Shannon, she's done in Waterbury for this week. In Massachusetts over here, we just finished, but I know over in like Arlington and some of the other Boston schools, they're still open, depending on the school.
We have 2.5 hours left of school.
We could stay in here and be like, "Good morning, Professor Aston."
He would murder us all in the face.
Before everyone dips out, especially because I know that we have some newer faces, and with the pandemic, like some people might have forgotten if they were new before then. I think one of the things that kind of comes to light as everyone spoke tonight, but then is also something to really keep in mind kind of as the game gets a little bit more involved with each other, speaking like North and South, right? Like they're very long tradition of kind of those two separate groups playing very differently. And so if you'll notice, a lot of the South has like all this like really kind of rich and intertwined history, and the North is super like get off my lawn.
But the North has more sagas to its credit.
Totally.
Like,
and to be clear, I'm a northerner.
So long.
I'm a deep northerner. Like I just like, that's nothing against the North. Like that's, that's the part of the game that I grew up in. But I think something that I always like to tell people, especially as the game gets a little bit more mixed, from here on out kind of, is that we have very different styles of play, which has always been known, but also like I think one of the most like potent ways I've seen that is gods. And that, like, if you go to Blackwood, they have their gods. If you go to Crayathorn, they have their gods. If you go to NA, if you go to Stonewood, etc., right? Like, basically, every time you step over a border, you're in like a new country, and like your gods turn off, and you have to like get a new SIM card, and that's like not how it works in the South, right? Like, and so,
guys, I'm lagging.
Like,
I'm lagging.
we this is kind of an out of character thing, but just like we as a game are gonna have to kind of figure out how we navigate that. I don't have any solutions, but I think it's just like really good to kind of point it out. The people who showed up tonight are people who are interested in this kind of stuff, like, the history, keeping the lore alive, all that stuff. But yeah, you need to upgrade to
solution is to
Aurora
try.
5G. And sort of like, we as kind of a game need to kind of come to a relative consensus of like how we want to play with that stuff, because for so long, everyone in the north just kind of did their own thing, and then everyone in the south kind of did everything together, and it's like super different. End of rant.
Thank you. For what it's worth, I, having finally made it up to Stonewood after all these years, like I really enjoyed it. I know, during James's presentation, he was like, it can feel like there's a lot of gods here all crammed into a small world. But like thinking out of character, like there's plenty of like, oh yeah, there's some like little country in the real world, which their mythology is super involved and doesn't like, sure, it has some of the same themes as like other like mythology, because all mythology has common themes, but is very unique. And I totally just felt that like, oh yeah, sure, okay, we're gonna go here and like it feels different and here's what's available. So for what it's worth, like getting more integrated is great, but I definitely don't think it has to be like, oh no, we have to get rid of this borders thing. I definitely didn't hate going to Stonewood and being like, yep, here are the gods that matter here. Just like you said, shift out your SIM card and just like play, like engage in these sagas.
You try.
Right.
That's basically the only way you're going to learn things, whether it's about the gods or learning, as Sokka did, that he hates them. Like, Sokka's the new villain in Thor: Love and Thunder. Like, he basically, the only way you're going to figure out anything in the realms, whether you're north, south, green, blue, black, whatever, is to try. Also, I don't know about the rest of y'all, but it's 10 p.m. and I still got to pack for myself and the girls.
Thank
you. I forgot. Event tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm so mad though, because I have to drop fighting and learn the other 2 path of magics for a while. So I got to go back to being a 3 path, and I am less than pleased as my character. Well, what you gonna do?
Thank you, Pat and Tucker, for arranging the first Realms Community Forum. I think this was a great
Thank you. This actually was really good.
Thank you, guys.
It was fun.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was great having everyone here too. I think we're going to try to post a little link sometime in the future for people who attended to give any notes on too, so we can run it better and make improvements and find stuff you guys want to talk about.
All right, cool.
What do we want to talk about next? Inquiring minds have got to know.
I think we talked about announcing the next month's at the end.
Yeah,
of
we're good to announce next month's currently.
Randy, what's it do?
So this will be an out of character topic, and I think we have to pull up the wording because I think it is kind of a
oh man, is it big words?
A multifaceted topic. What are we calling it? So I think we're calling it generally blow strength in combat, but it'll kind of cover, I think, 3 major points, which were the role of thrust only weapons, the role of headshots, I believe, and then I think blow strength in general. Did I get that right, Pat?
Yeah, so I think the general vision is to discuss blow strength in the realms, how it's currently marshaled, the various rules we have in place regarding it. So like headshots, thrust only weapons, weapon construction. We have a couple people lined up with unique perspectives, and we're looking for a couple more. So once we have a day of the week that works for everybody who's going to be on our panel of experts, we will get it announced, but we're planning for probably mid-July, on a day of the week that is not Friday. And yeah, it should be a good time. That will be a different format because we'll probably have like 3 to 5 people tops, and we'll do like a moderated panel discussion, and then we'll open up for Q&A and more like broader moderated discussion after that. Yeah.
Should be fun.
Hooray.
Hope so. Yeah.
All right, should we all get off Jason Rose's lawn?
I think that's about that time.
Probably.
I'm gonna get rambling, which means I'm gonna go unhook from Zoom.
If people are feeling social, I would recommend you hop into a voice chat in the Realms Discord. Because it's there.
If people speak to me.
But yeah, I'm gonna go do event prep. So night, everybody.
Night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Wait.